Hi everyone, I'm so excited that you're here. Today I'm working on a project that is very enticing to me. I need to make a skirt for a photo shoot I have coming up, and I want it to be a beautiful patchwork, colourful, fun and exciting piece. So that is what I'm creating today. Also, if we've never met before, my name is Carly. I'm a sewist and a maker here on YouTube. You can also follow me on all my other socials: TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, Patreon and YouTube. Subscribe! So, to begin, yesterday I actually cut out a bunch of fabric strips for this project. I used all of my favorite fabrics for this. What was really leading me was whether I just thought it was fun or not. So that's why we're seeing a lot of really exciting and silly patterns and prints. I kind of had this vision in my mind that this skirt would belong to a fairy who lives in a beautiful sparkly woodland, and she just goes on an adventure and she'll be picking up and attaching all of these little treasures she finds throughout her adventure. And that's what this skirt is. If I could imagine a little fairy being excited about one of these fabrics, then it went straight in my basket. The strips that I cut out are 6 inches wide and various lengths ranging from literally 20 centimeters to up to a meter. And the vision is just to patchwork these into big long strips that will eventually become tiers of the gathered skirt. My color portfolio is kind of split into 4 different piles. This just helped my brain to kind of make sure that I wasn't straying too far from the theme. I have this dark pile which kind of has like dark greens, purples and dark blues. I have this beautiful pile of pinks. I have a pile of lighter colors. They range from pale yellow to pale blue, and this pile of vibrants, and they're mainly in the green color scheme. And of course I have some sequins, and I might even make some bows and tassels and ties to go on the side of the skirt so I can cinch it up in different places, and maybe a petticoat will emerge. There's a lot of ideas. I think it's going to be really fun. Let's make it. A lot of the construction of the skirt is really similar, so once you get the basics, you're going to be understanding how to do the whole thing. So fundamentally, we're just going to be patchworking these long loops of fabric and overlocking or zigzag stitching the raw edge and pressing that seam, and that's going to construct one tier. That's 50 inches. When I was doing the skirt, I tried to make a point of not having the fabrics repeating from tier to tier. So if I use something in the first tier, I tried not to have it again in the second. And I just feel like this versatility just creates excitement and joy in the piece. Sometimes I also snip some of my fabric pieces if they were too long or I just had too much of one color. And I just feel like that gives it movement and funness. Yes, that's like 100 now. I just wanted to lay them out so that you can see how they look and how each tier does progressively get bigger. And essentially, as long as your tiers are bigger than one another, when you gather them, you'll get this beautiful volume and like the gathered tier effect, if that makes sense. They just have to be bigger than one another. So right about now, my bottom tier is 4 meters in length, which is quite long. So I'm going to actually attach these 3 tiers together so I can just get a visual on how gathered it actually is before making the decision on whether I want more gathered tiers. Alternatively, I will add non-gathered tiers. So they'll just be flat pieces of fabric that add length but not volume. I hope that makes sense. I'm just at that point where I need to decide what I want. I turned my stitch length up to 4 and then I sewed 2 rounds of parallel stitches so that I would be able to gather my tier. I then pulled out these little threads and slowly and carefully gathered my tier so that it was nice and even and also fit the circumference of my first tier. Then I lay it on top of that tier right sides together and pinned it in place, and then I sewed all the way around this circumference in between my 2 gathering stitches. Once I had done that, I was then able to remove my gathering stitches and the second tier was done. Loving the look of the first tier. I am going to just repeat this now for the next tier, and I will say this, that I am not overlocking or zigzag stitching my inside edge just yet, because I think I may want to add some ribbons in these seams once I've finished the construction of the skirt, and if they're overlocked it's just going to be harder to do. Leaving them raw means that I can unpick it and just slip something in and stitch over that really easily, and I'll just overlock everything at the end. Okay, I'm just going to add that next tier. It's the exact same process that we just did. I've done 3 tiers now, and I'm pretty happy with the level of gather that I have on this. I think the bottom of this is about 4 meters. So every tier from now on is going to be ungathered. I'm just going to repeat the process that I've been doing, except not gathering the tiers. So I'm going to stitch my panels together until it forms a 4 meter or so circumference, overlock those edges, press the seams, and then sew that loop to the previous loop of the skirt. I'm just going to repeat this until the skirt is my desired length. We'll see how many tiers I need to do that. The 5th tier. Yay! That is the 6th tier done. I just finished my 7th tier of the skirt, and I have a feeling it might be done lengthwise. That means that I can now start to think about adding some more interesting details on top. Scrap that actually. I think I want to make a petticoat first, so I can attach the petticoat in the skirt and then do the waistband. I think that's the way it has to be. I don't like when petticoats are a separate skirt. I just like one thing on my waist, you know?
Disclaimer, I don't really know anything about petticoats, so I was just doing my best here. But basically I just measured the length of my skirt and then cut my petticoat to be a little bit shorter than that. I just sewed it down the side seam and then hemmed it. And basically it was the same width as my skirt, so it was like 50 inches or whatever I said at the beginning. And then I used my erasable marker to mark where I wanted my first tier of tulle to sit on the petticoat. And then I sewed this big loop of gathered tulle directly on those markings as best as I could.
Well, it's the end of the day. I made the petticoat and I feel like I've kind of reached a midpoint where I'm just a little bit unsure of what to do next, stepwise. I think I might just tinker with it just for a half an hour and just have a little play with some ideas off camera, and tomorrow I'll come back and hopefully I'll have a plan of attack on how to finish this piece. But on fabrication alone, it's magical and I'm really excited by it. So that's a nice feeling, but yeah. Also, I forgot to mention, I received this beautiful package today from Sony, which are a sustainable and ethical dressmaking company. They make really timeless and feminine pieces. This is not sponsored, they just gifted it to me and I have been very much so enjoying wearing it today. Anyway, thank you Sony, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a plan. Okay, good morning. It is the 3rd day of the skirt. I did some tinkering last night and I think I know what the plan of attack is for today. Firstly, I decided to add this little tie into the skirt so that you can cinch it up or have it down. And I'm going to add another one and show you how I did that. It was super easy. I also added a little utility loop to just hook on like your keychain, but I also thought it would be so cute to have just like some strands of beads coming from that. And I will show you how to do this too. So the plan of attack is to add those accessories, overlock all of the inside edges then, hem, petticoat goes in, waistband. But yeah, let me show you how I added the ties and loops and let's finish the skirt.
This is basically how you make bias tape, except it's not on the bias. I just cut out 2 strips that were probably 2.5 inches wide, and I ironed the sides in, and then I flipped it once more and ironed it again so all of the inside raw edges were enclosed. Then I stitched in a straight line all the way down that edge and made sure I repeated that to have 2 ties.
To find the place where I want to add the bows, I just played around with cinching up tiers. So I would just take like this tier and see what it looks like if I brought it up to this tier. And that's the place that I'm going to add each of my little ribbons to tie the bow.
This is where I was feeling like a little smarty for not overlocking any of my skirt tiers, because it really was so easy just to unpick a few stitches and then slip my little strip of fabric through that small opening. Then I would pin that edge to the seam, I suppose, and then stitch over that line where the original stitching was. I just repeated this for my other tie as well. And I actually backstitched quite a lot over this tie just so that it had a little bit of structural integrity. Then I was able to overlock all of my tiers, and this really did take some time. And then your girl got so distracted and then just went crazy on this petticoat. And I added a few extra tiers, but I'll tell you about that in 1 second.
Well, I just got fully engrossed in this petticoat and it actually added a few more tiers. I just started with the tulle today and then I added 2 tiers of this lime green organza, and each tier is about 10 inches long and then just like at least double the length of this petticoat. Anyway, so I added 2 and it still wasn't giving me enough fluff, so then I added some tulle netting right underneath this top layer, and that just sticks out more so that when this organza falls, it just has a bit more oomph. And I think this is good now, so that's great. She's so fluffy. I'm gonna hem this skirt now, and I've decided I do not want it to be hemmed normally. I don't think I even want to lose 2 centimeters of length off the bottom because I love that the tiers are even. So I think I'm gonna do a hem facing and use the rest of my scrap strips to do so. Also, hem facings are so beautiful. I just love the expensive feel they give a garment and just that little extra bit of weight at the bottom of a skirt. I love it so much. Also, just as an example, my new Son de Fleur dress that they gifted me has a hem facing and it is beautiful. It's just the second piece of fabric that folds up onto the inside, so it just gives you this extra weight, and you can see it's like less sheer there. It's an extra little fancy little beautiful little great little thing you can do. Let me show you. For the hem facing, I'm going to use these scrap strips that I already cut, but I want them to be about half the width, so probably about 3 inches. So I'm just going to cut them so that they're 3 inches wide, and I'm going to create a strip that is the same circumference of my skirt. So I'll patchwork all of those strips together into that circumference, and then I can attach that strip or loop right sides together to the bottom of my skirt. Then once you've attached that loop right sides together to the bottom of the skirt, you can understitch it, which just means that you're going to flip the seam allowance to the hem facing side and not to the dress side. And you're just going to do a beautiful little stitch all the way around. And that means that when you fold the hem facing over to the wrong side, it's going to sit so nice and flat. Once you flip it over to the wrong side, you can iron it. Then you also need to iron down the top part of the hem facing so you have no raw edges exposed. And then you can stitch that down, and then your hem facing is complete. You guys know I get so nerdy and excited about details on clothes, and I always will. So I hope you enjoyed my enthusiasm for hem facings.
Finally, we have arrived to the part that I was most excited for, attaching my petticoat to the skirt. My petticoat was slightly wider than my skirt, so I just had to gather it a little bit so that it fit. But then I just pinned the two together and I sewed a round of stitches all the way around so that they were attached before adding my waistband. My grandma gave me this cool recycled waistband, probably from an old garment that she owned, and I wanted to use it for this. So I just pinned it evenly around the skirt and then I stretched it as I sewed. And it attached really nicely, actually.
So that did work, but I don't love the look of it. That's for your information. Like, if you want to make this sort of waistband, you can. That was great. But I think I just want to fold this under and just thread an elastic through. While I unpick this, let me give my customary shout out to all of my beautiful patrons. Hey guys, you are the best. I have a Patreon for those who don't know, and I have rewards that come out every month. And they are firstly a pattern breakdown of something that I've made in the past. So if you're interested, I've made these 2 patterns, breakdowns. They're not patterns, they're just like really detailed sewing and crochet locks. And I also do like a 45-minute long craft club, and it's just like grab a project, work and chat. You can ask any questions and I'll answer them. And that's the vibe. It's really fun and cute, and I'm loving it so much, and that's all. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you humongously, and I'll see you very soon for this month's rewards. Yay!
I ended up doing a very normal waistband situation for this. If you want more details, I did do a waistband in my pajama shorts video that I did last week, but basically I just stitched all the way around, leaving a small gap so that I could thread my elastic through that gap, and I went ahead and did that using a safety pin.
Also, my hands are cramping trying to get this elastic through the waistband. It's so much fabric and it's just not happy. She's all done. I'm really excited. This was a fun project. The construction was actually simple and similar to some things that I've made before, but because of the details like the petticoat and the loops and the ties, I think it just adds a little bit of extra magic to it. If you make something like this, oh my goodness, please let me know. I would be so thrilled and excited to see some more creations just like this. I'll show you guys in a second, but you just have to promise to be surprised when I show you photos from the photo shoot that I'm doing later on. Just act surprised. Before I show you, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you just enjoyed watching this video, whether you're a creative or not. You're so welcome here, and I'm sending you lots and lots of love from my corner of my studio, I guess. If you have any questions about this project, leave them in the comments below. And oh my gosh, the question for this week. This week I want to know just your favorite everyday pattern. Just throw me a great recommendation for your favorite pair of pants, your favorite shirt, just something that you get a ridiculous amount of wear at that you made yourself. I would love to know, and maybe I'll give it a crack myself. Okay, skirt reveal in 3, 2, 1.